This is critique 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know. Critique whatever. First critique for rules for radicals. You gonna go?
Okay. I guess at the beginning of the prologue, he opens up with the word revolutionary, with the phrase revolutionary force, and he says that there are two targets, moral and material. But I think both of us don't really understand what he means by that. I mean, I think it's easy to understand material because we live in a Western world, so we're very fluent in materialism.
Right.
But I mean, you had a problem with the word moral.
Well, because when I think of revolutionary, I think of like going after something, fighting for something, and I can understand fighting for materials, like fighting for territory, fighting for money, but fighting for rights and morals, is that like it kind of? I just think of Proposition 8, like that's the thing, that's moral, that's the only moral thing I can think of, like what someone has the right to do and what someone doesn't have the right to do.
Well, just because he uses the word revolutionary, I automatically think about our revolution, the American Revolution, and how we weren't fighting for territory, we weren't fighting for money. Right. What we were fighting for was liberty, a moral liberty. Freedom for ourselves, something that's not necessarily tangible, but can be illustrated through, I guess, if you want to tie into materialism, through obtaining material possessions such as land or, I guess, even money in general. So I think it's nice that he divides it into two targets, and it's very simple and very structured to where a person can easily understand what he means.
I know, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Because it's in my terms, unlike terms where I have no idea what's going on. I kind of, on the next page, I kind of liked how...
Page 14 of the prologue.
Yes, page 14 of the prologue. I kind of liked how he, people that have gone after materialistic things, kind of like the consequences or what we've seen our parents suffer of like alcoholism and long-term endurance marriages or divorces or high blood pressure. I just think it's kind of like, to me, he's pointing out that maybe we shouldn't be fighting for such materialistic things, and maybe we should more focus on that moral target rather than the materialistic target. I don't know if that's what he meant, but that's where my mind twisted it as.
Well, that makes sense because Alinsky, he looked at this, all these things that come from materialism, such as like divorces or parents being addicted to tranquilizers, alcohol, or even health issues such as high blood pressure.
Right.
And he's claiming that all this comes from being materialistic. And I think, again, I'm going to use this phrase, the Western world, because the Eastern world is completely different in terms of materialism. I mean, they understand their possessions not as actual objects that we own, but rather, I guess, non-material things such as like family or love.
Right. See, I feel like those fall more into the moral category than materialistic. But to me, he was just giving a connotation that maybe we have it all wrong striving for materialistic. Maybe we should start striving for more of our moral issues rather than what's mine.
Right.
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Well, let me think, what was I going with that?
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
You can do it.
I know, I'm trying to fish it out. I really am. Oh, that's right. It seems like it seems superficial, the way that we live as far as materialism.
Oh, it
materialism is. We don't necessarily go for the deeper meaning.
Nope.
I had another point too. Go ahead and go. I'll think of another point.
Oh, well, I don't know. He mentions how the younger generation talks about how they don't want to follow, like they don't want to follow their parents' footsteps. They don't want to, get the materialistic things. Like they want to create their own world and what things mean to them and live by their own standards and values. And then it talks about how the older generation just doesn't understand. But I didn't understand because at one time they were the younger generation. Mm-hmm. So did they just fall into the trap of aiming for materialistic things? Does that make sense?
I think
like at one time they were the younger generation. So at one time, like does this book apply to all generations? Because at one time, our parents were young and they were, I don't want to live in my parents' footsteps.
Right.
But then whenever we get older, we always turn to the point where like, oh my God, I am my mother.
Yeah, I'm going to say you're bringing up 2 points. You're bringing up that because the way your parents raise you, you're inevitably gonna be like them.
Right.
But you're also bringing up the point that, well, at least how I understand it, is that materialism is conceptually easier to understand. Because if you, say for example, if your parent is lecturing you on what is right and what is wrong, it's hard to understand that there's a lot of gray area. So it's not easy. And even like philosophers today, even I'm thinking of psychology. Well, wouldn't you think of science?
No.
Well, whatever. Well, I'm thinking when we study ethics in psychology and code of ethics, there's a lot of gray area. It's not cut and dry. And so that makes it very difficult to say this is right, this is wrong.
Right.
And so if you're thinking about the youth, how do you explain that? How do you explain gray area to, say, for example, like a preteen or something like that? So I think it was easy for them to fall into like the materialist trap.
Right.
Because it's easy. I have a cell phone, it's right here, it's mine, and that's all there is to it. So I guess they didn't necessarily set out the goal of I'm going to be materialistic. I think it just happened that way.
Do you think he focuses on the younger generation as being radicals because we have, like, why do you think he focuses on the younger generation to enforce change and to fight for our morals and stuff?
I think it's easier for us to imagine change because everything's new, right? Nothing. Yeah. It seems like nothing's set in stone. I mean, even for our own careers, for example, like.
You can be anything you want to be.
Exactly.
Bullshit. We cannot.
Well, I mean, like I'm thinking like, I know you hate when I bring up psychology, but it's gonna happen.
I know.
I'm thinking like right now I want to be a clinical psychologist. Well, that's what I want to be, but it could end up that I'm going to be a social psychologist or something like that. And it's not set in stone. So like everything's malleable, everything is able to change. And really, if we think about government and stuff like that, we see a law and it's brand new to us. Well, we're going to immediately look at it, assess it, and think, well, that's a great law. We should continue that. Or, well, that law is just a bunch of bullshit. We should.
See, I want to take into consideration this book was written in 1971 because even today, like the generation, Medina says all the time that we're more cynical, like we're less optimistic. Mm-hmm. So, I just like ideally this makes sense to focus on the younger generation, but I think as time goes on, we're gonna lose our. I don't even know if we're going to lose our American dream idea, but just like the optimistic side of you. Because this was written like 40 years ago. Well, things are completely different, and that wasn't that like the hippie living stage?
Well, I don't even know, because even the hippies today they're not necessarily still like, hey, everything's going to be okay. I mean, look at people who are 40 to 50 years old right now. People who are, say, for example, running the country, or even news reporters, stuff like that. They're focusing on the negative. I mean, granted, the media is already biased as it is, but they do focus on the negative. Even in casual conversation, they're saying, well, our economy is crap, and we're never going to get out of it, or we're going to go through another Great Depression. I mean, that's far from optimistic.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think that optimism is hard in general. Right? I mean, it's hard to see, at least for us, it's hard to see